Andrew Davies is an expert on defence operations and capability at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, and he joins us now from Canberra. Andrew Davies, thank you for joining us. This new defence white paper is being brought forward, as we've heard, by a year. Is the government jumping the gun, or have things really changed that much to warrant a review?
I think what we're actually seeing is a recognition that the previous defence white paper didn't match ambitions and resources accurately. And I think while saying that the situation has changed, I think it's actually more about getting the defence planning more accurate.
What has actually changed since the last paper was released in 2009?
Well, one of the things that's changed is the amount of money available to defence in Australia. The defence white paper contains some promises of real funding increases each year, and we've yet to see any of them materialise. So I think what's actually happened is that while, as Minister Smith said, that there's a lot of things that have been approved, the core parts of the program that the 2009 white paper set out have simply not been happening. So I think it's time to recalibrate.
What lessons have been learned from the difficulties that were experienced with the Collins-class submarines?
Well, the Collins class has been an enduring problem. Even the Chief of Navy last week said that their availability isn't all that they need to be. And the real problem now is that the Collins class will start to retire in the first part of the 2020s, with the last boat going through to about the end of the decade. But we need a replacement for them if we're to avoid a gap between the two classes. And it's got to the stage now where something has to happen fairly quickly in order to avoid that.
The government announced that it was scrapping plans for self-propelled artillery and a delay to the Joint Strike Fighter jets. Does that leave a capability gap in the military?
I don't think it does. In fact, the deferring of the Joint Strike Fighter is probably not a bad thing. Given the problems the program's had in the United States and the fact that the US has deferred its own acquisition, it means that we'll be able to have a better look at the maturity, the cost and the delivery schedule of the jets before we sign up for them. So I don't actually think that that's a bad thing. And the self-propelled artillery is really suited to the sort of war that the government's own policy says that the army won't be involved in, and that is high-intensity conflicts in places like Africa and the Middle East.
The review notes that China's power has grown even more quickly than was forecast in the 2009 paper. Is that trend likely to continue? And does this new strategy necessarily imply and overstate the risk posed by our nearby neighbours?
Well, I think that China's military power is increasing very rapidly. I'm not sure if it was more rapid than could have been predicted 3 years ago. But the Chinese this year will spend at least $130 billion on defence, and they're increasing that at the rate of about 10 or 12% a year. So there is a real power shift going on in North Asia and in the Western Pacific more generally. In terms of the threat that poses to Australia, it's long been a tenet of Australia's military planning that we plan on capability, not intent, because intent can change quickly and capability takes a long time to develop. So the fact that we're reacting to an increase of Chinese military power doesn't necessarily reflect the assessment of a threat. It reflects the assessment that it's something that could be a threat if the intent changed.
How is this going to be absorbed by our neighbours like Indonesia?
Well, I think they'll be interested to see what the 2013 white paper actually has to say. And one of the good things is that it will follow the white paper that Ken Henry's developing at the moment about Australia in the Asian century. And I think one of the problems with the 2009 white paper is that you had the military side of things, which almost by definition is a worst case sort of scenario, without the balance of a foreign policy and economic engagement strategy. So if we see those things come out one after the other, we should get a more rounded view of Australia's approach to the region, and hopefully that will calm some nerves.